Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me here in this webinar on symptoms and treatments for parasites. Now, this is a very important subject because there's a lot of misunderstandings about parasites. Many naturopaths, chiropractors, or amateur herbalists often believe, looking at the symptoms, that everybody has parasites. It is true, many people do have parasites, but they're not life-threatening, and generally we can live with the minor amount of parasites or pathogens for quite some time, as many animals do. Unfortunately, many people jump to a conclusion too quickly that they have parasites and give out strong anti-parasitical herbs like wormwood, black walnut husk, and even neem, and create more damage to the intestinal flora than the mucosa lining of the colon, and the person ends up with a type of irritable bowel or leaky gut or even ulcerative colitis type of condition from taking these strong anti-parasitical herbs for an extended period of time. So you don't want to jump to the conclusion you have parasites just when you hear the symptoms, because the most common symptoms are, quite general: gas, bloating, constipation, IBS-like symptoms of diarrhea, even acidity, weakness, fatigue, changes of mood, even anxiety, irritability, mental fog, dizziness, and sleep issues, itchiness, rashes, white spots on the nails, allergies. There are many eye floaters. There are many signs that can be indicative of parasites. However, I see the only important ones that you should really use as confirming if you have parasites is: one, drooling at night, drooling on your pillow, or even an animal. You can see they're drooling a lot. This is usually a telltale sign of some type of intestinal worm or parasite. And for the animal, it's time to do the annual spring parasite cleanse, which can, for young animals or small animals, you can use homeopathic methods and very gentle methods because they respond quite well. Other common sign or clear sign is itchy rectum. Another very important sign and symptom is mucus in the stool. So, but the most important thing is to try to treat these other symptoms like gas, bloating, constipation, fatigue, poor digestion, maybe even insomnia, constipation, or diarrhea first, naturally, before you jump to the conclusion and start taking these anti-parasitical herbs. Because these anti-parasitical herbs are not as strong as, say, antibiotic, but at the same time, they can reduce your intestinal flora. They can weaken the digestive system over time, and generally they shouldn't be taken longer than 2 weeks. And most of my clients, I recommend they're only taking these products for 7 days, taking maybe a few days off or a week off, and allowing for any eggs to hatch in the case of like tapeworms, and then resume and do a second round a little bit shorter. But you definitely don't want to do a long anti-parasitical cleanse where you're avoiding all starches, all grains. This is generally not necessary. Now, of course, if you've been to a doctor and you've been tested, like in a third world country, and they confirm that you have parasites, then, and you have a lot of symptoms, you can start treating it right off the bat. But in my case, out of 100 people who think they have parasites, less than 1% do. And since I don't have this test available to me and physical examinations are quite limited, then I feel, in my experience, it's safer to treat the digestion and treat the constipation and treat the anxiety and treat the sleeping issues initially, without going towards the parasitical herbs, because they're very strong. I mean, they can, like I said, they can damage the colon and kill intestinal flora. So if after my initial treatments, which I'm quite good at treating digestive complaints, so if it's not resolved in 1 month, or definitely even a few weeks, but definitely after 1 month to 6 weeks, and we still have very strong symptoms, and the person has improved their eating habits, even change their diet, stop the snacking, stop the crackers, the cookies, the cold foods, large amounts of yogurt and mucus creating foods, and strengthen their digestion, because one of the most common causes of parasites is low immunity and weak digestion. And of course, we don't really understand what weak digestion is in the West. I mean, weak digestion, or manda agni, can just mean not hungry or feeling heavy or sluggish after meals. Or vishama agni in Ayurveda, where you're getting chronic gas and bloating or having a lot of trouble digesting different foods, where you're having to say, oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat bread, I can't eat grains, I can't eat dairy. So when you're not able to eat foods, that's a digestive issue, even though it's obviously often not acknowledged as a digestive issue. And then if you have no appetite at all, this is also considered another sign of weak digestion. So that's why we see the Vata Prakriti, who has the qualities of light, dry, and active qualities, and cold, tend to get the gas and bloating, or Vishama Agni, easy, and then get Sangha, or blocked up in the colon, and then and we have a weaker digestive, fire, less Panchaka Pitta, less fire there, so they're susceptible, Vata type, and because of those reasons. And then the Kapha type is also susceptible due to the accumulation of mucus and phlegm and sluggish bowel movements, and even eating habits like snacking can contribute to this condition. It's the Pitta Prakriti, or the person with a strong digestive fire, strong stomach acids, that tends to get, and good immunity, that tends to be least affected by parasites. So you could be sitting with a group of people, which I've done in India, where we all ate the same food. Some people had food poisoning, some people got parasites, while other people were perfectly fine. So the parasite itself, or the pathogen itself, and this is for all bacterial, viral, fungal, and parasite type pathogens, the real cause is the terrain. The environment is weak, or in this case, low immunity and poor digestion, because somebody else eating the same foods may not have the same reaction as you. So the environment is more important. And you can see people living in third world countries eating in a very unsanitary environment and eating these foods every day, and they're not getting these stomach poisoning or food poisoning or parasites, because the environment that they have inside of their body is not conducive for these pathogens to live. So they're just passed right through and coming out in the stool. So and also, it's important to understand in Ayurveda, or really for most herbalists, unless you have a blood test and it's telling that you have tapeworms or a certain type of pathogen, then we really don't know. We're just looking for the signs and the symptoms. And these herbal remedies are quite broad, so it's actually not that necessary to know the exact type of worm or parasite you have. What's important in Ayurveda is where you have it. I mean, you can have worms in your blood, in your lungs, in your liver, stomach, and most common, of course, in your colon, and ultimately coming out in your fecal matter. So we treat the kumi, or that means worm, in Ayurveda. That's what they called it. There's the seen worm and the unseen worm. They weren't able to really classify them, even though they did do surgery and they could see intestinal worms, but they knew there were many that they couldn't see. But they knew the signs and the symptoms, and then they knew the treatment, of course. So let's talk about some of these other causes of parasites. Spending time in a third world country, eating salads. That's why they say in India, don't eat a salad, even in a 5-star hotel in India. Now, it's gotten a lot better. That's an old saying, so I bet you it's better today. This is kind of what we used to say in the 80s, never have a salad in India. So we see people going to South America or Mexico and having salads, and and uncooked food. That's one cause. And of course, excessive use or frequent use of antibiotics and steroids or even birth control pills can make you vulnerable. Stress also can make you vulnerable and weaken your immunity, weaken your digestion system. Somebody's been camping, sleeping outside, drinking water out of a lake or a creek that hasn't been boiled can be a cause. Eating raw meat like sushi that wasn't safe or was contaminated. There's people who went to cheap sushi bars. You don't go to a sushi bar in a third world country. It's pretty risky because they could have raw meat is well known for having parasites. And, just not washing your hands if you're taking care of cats or dogs, and particularly kitty litter, and you're not washing your hands very well. I guess the dogs, they hear me here. And then, of course, kissing dogs or sleeping with pets can be another cause that you should be aware of. So if you do have parasites, or when I do treat somebody with parasites, it's very important to identify why you got them. Again, there's many symptoms, IBS-like symptoms, irritable bowel, leaky gut, gas, bloating, constipation, mental fog, dizziness, anemia, particularly if they're drawing blood, and rectal, or even for women, vaginal itching, particularly at night, trouble sleeping, and fatigue and low immunity, other allergies. People say eye floaters are a sign. But again, I like to focus on the three main ones: drooling, whites, phlegm in the stool, and other, clear indicators like itchy rectum, keeping you up at night. This is and it tells us, of course, what it is. You can also have strong itches or rashes around the abdominal area. This is particularly, I see this a lot with cats and dogs. Now we're going to talk about some herbs that can be taken here, and then we'll cover some foods that can be helpful. But one good home remedy is just castor oil. That's been used for a long time. We just purges and cleanses the GI tract. Doesn't say it's anti-parasitical, but it is. We recommend taking a couple tablespoons with some ginger tea or some peppermint tea at night before bed. That's a good home remedy. The most common herb used in Ayurveda for parasites is Vidanga. I like Vidanga a lot. It's a mild laxative. It's not too strong. It's not as strong as wormwood or black walnut husk. And you can put it in Ayurveda, and particularly in my formulas, I put a little Vidanga in many of my formulas. Here's a colon herb formula here, and you can see, this is just for dry, hard stools, constipation. And you can see Carsata sagrada, even though it's not an Indian herb. And then Haritaki in there, and Bibataki, Amlaki, which are the three ingredients for Triphala, but I just put in more Haritaki, so it's listed first. And there's what's called Enron, which is listed here as castor oil, but in Ayurveda we call it Enron, which is dried castor oil. And in fact, we actually purchased this from India called Enron Haritaki. So it's castor oil and Haritaki, dried castor oil and Haritaki 50-50. That is very effective for dry, hard stools. And there's a little amlaki and bibataki. Those are the other two ingredients in Triphala. And then licorice, this is a demulcent, helping to soothe the intestinal lining and soften these other herbs, the effects of these other herbs. A little ginger, because Vata tends to be dry. And there you see the Vidanga, last one. So even though you don't have parasites, we tend to put that Vidanga in every single colon formula. So if I'm not sure a patient has parasites, I'm going to improve the digestion, improve the eating habits, get rid of all the sweets anyway, because who needs these cookies, candies in the first place, and then give them some colon herbs with a small amount of Vidanga, and increase the digestive fire by having like ginger tea, ginger cumin tea, or some even CCF, cumin, coriander, fennel tea, maybe with a little ginger, and get the digestion strong, the appetite strong, get rid of the snacking, get the bowels moving, and use a colon herb that has a little Vidanga. And then see what happens. 3 or 4 weeks, 99% of the time, the gas, the bloating, the constipation, the irritable bowel, symptoms, the abdominal pain, it's all gone. Now, if they come back, they still have the abdominal pain, sporadic diarrhea, itchy rectum, mucus in the stool, which, I have to have them go take a better look at anyway, so I can get all that information on the second appointment, what the stool was like. And of course, when you do see parasites in the stool, they look like, sometimes worms will look like rice noodles, and then some will just look like little pieces of white rice, little specks, white rice. And if you get a magnifying glass and look at them, you can see them moving, because many of these herbs are really just expelling the parasites more than they're cleaning them, killing them, so to speak. So here's a general broad spectrum formula, which I use quite a bit. First off, this is my first attack, parasite and fungal formula. And this will expel pathogens, parasites, kill bacteria and fungal growth. And there's the triphala again, Haditaki, Bibataki, Amlaki. I don't provide them in the form of triphala because I want more Haditaki in there than Bibataki, which can be astringent. So there's, that's the order and the quantity. And there's Vidanga, the first ingredient really after the triphala. So this is probably 30% Vidanga. Another 10-20% Musta, which is amazingly not only good for weight loss, but also parasites. Neem, a big heavy hitter. It's antiviral, antimicrobial. Little ginger to keep the appetite high. Pipali, which is also, got some anti-parasitical qualities. So this is a not too strong formula. It's not going to tear up your intestinal lining like taking wormwood capsules all by themselves, which I've seen people do, or black walnut husk capsules for all by itself on an empty stomach. That can really tear up your insides, particularly if you take it too long or take it on an empty stomach. This formula wouldn't do that, and we could take that even after meals. But here is another one. If it's actually, in a way, it's stronger and more focused, because the other one was a general. This is just anti-parasitical tea. And you can see the big heavy hitters are on the bottom there, wormwood, black walnut husk. But, we got some peppermint at the top. It's kind of like a filler, make it taste good. Senna is only a small amount in there to keep the bowels going. But look, we have 3 demulcent herbs there, slippery elm, licorice root, and fennel. 3. And this is to line the intestinal lining, soften the effects of the scraping, cleansing, antiviral, antimicrobial qualities of these bitters, wormwood and black walnut husk, which are quite bitter. So this fennel, licorice, and slippery elm all will help to soften the effects of the senna and the wormwood and the black walnut. And the peppermint helps with the digestive discomfort, which you actually get a lot of times from senna, particularly if you take it by itself, which you should not do. And it does say don't use continuously more than 14 days. But like I said, I wouldn't take it longer than 7 or 8 days. Take a little break for a few days and do another round. So there are a few dietary guidelines. Of course, you got to stop eating the cookies, the candy, the sweet, even agave, maple syrup, coconut sugar, and cut back on the refined grains, all refined sugar products, starchy things. People say eliminate dairy, but I don't think it makes a big difference. But what you can do, except too much mucus can be harmful, so too much yogurt. Cold foods can be a problem. No cold drinks, no cold water. What you want is hot and bitter, pungent and bitter, like bitter leafy greens. There are a few foods that help with parasites, like papaya, pineapple, apple cider vinegar, garlic, cilantro juice, and of course bitter gourd, which we don't really get here in the United States, but that's very effective. And of spices, just like ginger, turmeric, black pepper, clove, and particularly cayenne pepper can also be very effective. So, if you're taking the herbs, plus you're putting these spices in your food, you're avoiding all these sweets and starches for 1 week, adding extra garlic, green onion, taking a little apple cider vinegar before the meal, a few other healthy intestinal probiotics, maybe like a little kefir or yogurt, that should be quite effective for most cases. You shouldn't have to take, wormwood by itself and starve yourself to death. So, just staying and not stressed, relaxed, having a little lemon water in the morning, not snacking on cookies and candies, having a regular routine, getting good sleep, keeping stress at a minimum. Those will all help you as well. So don't jump to the conclusion you have parasites and start doing something crazy like taking strong anti-parasitical herbs, which is generally the way you see them sold in a health food store, and many people do try to dish them out. I'd be very cautious, and like I said in the beginning, try to treat the causes first, your poor digestion, your poor elimination, your poor digestive fire, so to speak, and focus on that first, and then observe your stool and look for more clear symptoms before you proceed with taking anti-parasitical herbs. And then when you do take them, make sure you're not taking them straight and taking too much or taking too long. Mix them with other herbs, or at least take them with food, and try to use the food as much as you can as well, like chili pepper and garlic and apple cider vinegar. All can be beneficial. So the idea is to use the minimum amount of these strong anti-parasitical herbs, particularly, like I said, black walnut husk and wormwood. And even neem, you don't want to take neem for very long. You know, some of these strong bitters, you know, they also are anti-aphrodisiacs. They also are mild contraceptives for men, reducing sperm count. So that's the way I can talk men into stopping their anti-parasitical diet, because this is it's not supportive of the reproductive system of the man or the woman. And none of these strong bitters should be taken for any woman who's pregnant, believes they could be pregnant, or nursing, because these bitters would then go into the milk. It would not only make the milk not tasty for the child, but could be too strong and could reduce the intestinal bacteria and intestinal flora for the mother. So proceed with caution. Don't jump ahead, and try to resolve the issues in other ways first, and make sure you have confirmation and maybe a second opinion before you start taking these strong anti-parasitical herbs. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this helped you out. I hope it helps you understand the common signs and symptoms and treatments that are available for parasites. And contact me if you need further assistance or a second opinion on your case. Thank you very much.